Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the new Sencut Serene, which is a very inexpensive and very fantastic budget button lock offering from Sencut. By the time you guys are watching this video, it will absolutely be available in multiple colors. This is aluminum. It looks like titanium, which is pretty cool just because of the way it's finished, but it's aluminum and it'll also come in a bunch of different colors. I will link it right down below so you guys can check it out if you want to. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks so much to Sencut for sending this knife in for me to take a look at. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and jump into this. Not going to be a long video today. Overall length of the Serene is coming in at about 8 inches. So a nice full-size knife in my book. 3.5-inch blade and a 3.5-inch cutting edge as well. Let's go ahead and put this up against just a few knives here. Up against the Ontario Rat. Let's do the Model 1 and the Model 2. We'll just do them backwards today. There we go. Still definitely a full-size knife, just not quite the same size as the Rat 1. Up against the CJRB Pyrite and the Civivi Elementum. There we go. How about up against the Spyderco Para 3? And finally, the Benchmade Bug Out. All right. How's the action on this guy? When I unboxed this, you know, a lot of, something I've been pointing out a lot lately is I get really upset with button lock knives where if you push the button down too hard, it doesn't want to drop. This one was doing that. And if I push hard enough, I can still get it to do it, but I had to push really hard. This is the first knife that has shown evidence of that wearing in. This would catch much easier, and I sat and flipped and flipped and flipped, and I was determined to find out, can I get this to wear in without adding nano oil to it? Will it naturally wear in to the point where it doesn't take as much, you know, or it takes an enormous amount of force to get it to do that again? And the answer, fortunately, is yes. It's interesting, you know, to me, it is an issue. If I have to find this sweet spot of the amount of pressure it takes to disengage the button lock or disengage the blade from the locked out position, if I have to find a sweet spot between pressing it a little bit and, you know, some random amount of force, I don't like to do that, right? I want to just be able to press it and have it fall, right? Some people are going to naturally press softer or harder. I don't like there being a narrow zone to get it to fall shut. Initially, that zone was more narrow, but it seems to have opened up a bit as those surfaces sort of smooth themselves out. Some people are going to think this is an issue and some people will not. Obviously, the more narrow it is, the more of an issue it is, and I've found that it is the case, you know, with a lot of budget button lock knives. Some people were saying that's why I buy Kaiser. The Kaiser was the first one that I had do it, right? So it's a thing with a lot of companies, and some companies it's not a thing at all. It seems like the other side of the Plunge is just sort of mashing into the face of the blade or the face of the blade tang. But it looks like over time this will actually wear in. And this has become, you know, I can push on it pretty hard and it'll just drop. So that's really good. I like that. Outside of that, the action is wonderful. The thumb studs on this are great. They look like little bullet caps, I guess. The detent is awesome. The, you know, and here's an issue that I find not to be an issue, but some people say is they don't like the bounce, right? If you hold it too long and it bounces like this, that's more of a timing thing. It's more of a agility thing. So I guess once you get used to it, the exact time it takes for the blade to drop and fall into the closed position, and then you can catch it with the plunge lock, right? So I don't know. That's all button locks will do that if you hold it too long. But anyways, the action is great. It runs on bearings. It's really good. It's exactly what you'd expect. I'm just really happy to find that sort of plunge stick. I guess we're inventing a term. We're inventing a complaint, or I am, and then I'm expecting people to echo it, I guess, is something that can potentially wear in and become less of a problem. So that's nice. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. So thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. Really not all that thick. It's actually a little bit thinner than the Para 3. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. This guy's going to carry fairly similarly to the PM2. It's a little bit shorter and not quite as tall as either. It's definitely a little longer than the Spyderco Para 3. Let's go ahead while I've got this stuff right here. I really should have done this right off the bat because I want to make a point here really quick. And I should have had these ready to go before I started the video. This is kind of like the other famous button locks in Senkut's line. The ones that I like are the Saxy and the Crowley. And I want to put this up because, listen, if this is your first time seeing these knives and you're just wondering, like, I want a good button lock, like, are these good? Yeah, these are some of the best out there for the money. This is kind of like everything I like about the Saxy and everything I like about the Crowley wrapped up into one knife. And it's a little bit bigger, right? So these are all great. I'll have, the Sencut. I'll have this guy linked in the description. You can use that link to find the Crowley and the Saxy as well. But it's a little bit bigger, but it really does kind of combine the elements and just add size to it. And I like that a lot, especially the grind here is kind of like the it's like the Saxy blade with the Crowley positioning of the thumb stud and having it moved out of the way of the cutting path. And that's a nice move. I don't know if they did that on purpose, but I like that that's that way. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. I'm out of breath because those knife boxes were heavy and I turned around and I moved. I had to figure out where to move them and I was just standing there holding them. The pivot here is T8 and then the body screws are also T8, which is something that I love that Sencut does. The pocket clip screws are a T6, but no big deal. Overall, this is a very simple knife to take apart and put back together. As long as you have quality tools and a place to put your hardware, you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and do a measurement of blade stock thickness. Blade stock thickness on this knife is coming in at pretty darn thin, 116, probably 115 thousandths, which is pretty typical for Sencut. Let's go ahead and weigh it. Like I said, aluminum, and then we have D2 for the blade, and that's it. Internally, there's no milling or anything like that, but it honestly feels like a very lightweight knife. So, what do we have here? 3.49 ounces. That's just really great. Really, really great. No issues there. Balance on this knife is actually more towards the pivot, which is really nice. It's going to feel like an incredibly lightweight knife for the size. So, very happy with that. Is that it? Have we done all the... Okay, let's move into the meat and potatoes here. Wow, this is nice. I mean, listen, this is another sort of like, here's our next thing, and it's slightly different from our last things, and it's a button lock, and we just made some tweaks to some other models. It really feels like they just sort of mashed a lot of things together, but that's fine. It works. This is very, very inexpensive, and it's also very, very impressive. I like the blasted finish on this aluminum because it kind of looks like titanium. And I don't know, some people might, care or not care. I don't know. But I like that we're doing aluminum on these things, especially now finding out that this sort of plunge stick that bothers me and not everybody is something that can break in over time. Let me say this to Sencut and to just any other company that's looking to make the next generic folding steak knife of a button lock, which is fine. People like these. People collect them. That's great, right? They're good knives. And these, especially with this geometry, it's really great. Guys, add some texturing. Just like this flat aluminum thing, I get that it's easy to do and whatever, but you want to stand out right now in a sea of just plain Jane, like, look, here's the next thing. It's pointy and it goes in your hand and it's got great... You want to stand out? Here's something that nobody's doing. Texturing, right? I know people are like, he's showing a freaking USA Demco there that's been like expertly machined. It doesn't have to be polished or nearly as extravagant, but this is really inexpensive. I'll tell you this. I would pay $15 more to have some texturing, just a pattern within this area right here. I refuse to believe that it's that expensive for Sencut to do something like that, and it would add it would add some aesthetic personality here. We have a lot. I mean, just with Sencut and Civivi and Kaiser and CJRB and whoever else, right, doing these budget button locks, we got a lot of them, and they are all just plain and flat. It would be cool to see some texturing. But the fact that there's no texturing on this doesn't mean that it's bad. In fact, it's extremely comfortable. The only thing that bothers me is, you guessed it, Sencut / Civivi's famous Loch Ness Monster build clip. It's not really that big of a deal, but I can feel it. And because they insist on this dragon face thing, it will snag at some point much easier than a clip like this that stops and has a bill that it doesn't come over or hook over, right? I don't know that there's a benefit to a bill over clip or a hook over clip. I honestly, I don't know why that is. It's just grabby. It's just a grappling hook, right? But I also feel like it's a bit too long. They could probably scale this thing back a little bit, but okay, whatever. It's fine. And you know what? They've got a spot for lefties to carry this, and lefties, you're gonna love this. It's really, really easy to manipulate, right? No different. In fact, I think it's easier for you guys to manipulate button locks. You get to use your index finger, right? So really good. Action with the thumb studs or with the flipper tab is really great. I think we went over that, but just to reiterate, it's really, really organic. This is nice. Edges are beautifully knocked down. Really, really great. Without it being contoured, this is about as comfortable as I think it could be. I like the ergos on it, and I think that the jimping extends out to just a point that it really complements the index finger position well. You're ways off from the cutting edge, but not terrible. And more importantly, that thumb stud basically clears it. It's just maybe barely in like a 1/16 of an inch, but it's kind of like the Crowley in that it's just mostly out of the way, especially considering you're going to be cutting at an angle most of the time. The blade is a drop point flat ground blade, nice and thin and very thin at the edges, made out of D2, and they have a typical or just like a regular belt satin finish on it, which is fine. It's going to be a performance blade. It's going to cut, it's going to slice, it's going to do it efficiently. The geometry of this blade is really going to help out with that. It really is. It's like the height of the Saxy, and you get the really super thin, edge geometry, but you get that awesome cutting path clearing thumb stud. So really, really nice. I really don't have anything to complain about here. It's just, it's great. The blade is fantastic. People looking for knives in this territory are going to find that's a really joyous thing. I didn't know how to end that sentence. We have a little bit of a lanyard bar thing here, and that's great. Lanyard people can attach a lanyard, and if you're not a lanyard person, which is to say that you are 99.9999999% of the population, then you're not going to care that it's there. Just a couple of standoffs, which is fine. That's all you need. Clip position is not completely and totally deep, but it doesn't need to be. It's fine. The screws are recessed, but the clip is not, and that's okay because for people who care, it means that they didn't have to mill a recessed pocket into this side or either side, right? In and out of the pocket, very smooth, very easy because of the smooth surface here. This isn't, to my knowledge, this is blasted and not Type 3 hard coat anodized, which is going to be the case when you get the colored versions. This feels a little chalky, but then again, so does the Type 3 hard coat anodizing of the aluminum. Either way, it should be easy in and out of the pocket. The stop pin is located back here, and we have a little bit of shouldering, which is great. No blade play up, down, left, or right. No stick whatsoever. No pivot lash, very smooth in here, and what's acting as the detent, which is the plunge lock, is nice. It gives that sort of almost the same kind of click that you would feel with a ball bearing detent. This is really good. The only downside is it's a bit on the larger side versus some of the other Sencut knives. And I say on the downside, I mean that for some people. Me personally, I prefer this. I like this. I like the size of it. I think it's excellent. Really nice cutting geometry. I'm so happy that this plunge stick, whatever, sort of wore in and it made it easier to manipulate. This might be their best button lock yet. But seriously, Sencut, if you watch these, if you actually watch my reviews, add some texturing to some of these. Just do something, mill a pattern or something onto these and give them some more personality. Tweaking things and just making the blade slightly better and putting the thumb stud in a little bit better place and making the handle profile more like this other model, but just slightly different. It's just too. A lot of these, it's cool that this is made, but it's almost like why? Because you have other models that are so close to it, right? Make something stand outish. This is really good. But what I like to do is find the next evergreen, right? Find the next amazing thing. And this is very, very good, but there's nothing here that makes it really stand out, in the sea of other amazing budget button lock knives. But then again, it probably is, one of the best that they've ever done. This is a very inexpensive knife. It's $46. It's extremely recommendable. If you are, a veteran to the knife world, you'll like this. If you're new to the knife world, you'll like this. If you're buying it for a gift for somebody, they'll probably like it. It's really good. I have no problem with the price. I'm glad that Sencut is keeping their stuff under $50. A lot of this stuff, really the value here is just off the charts. I'm very happy with it. So yes, extremely recommendable if you are looking for a new knife, and you like button locks, consider this one here. Very good. The Serene. Sorry, it's only the second time I've said it since the beginning of the video. That's going to be pretty much it today, guys. Like I said, it'll be linked right down in the description so you guys can check it out. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.